Tina, you've talked about how in this digital world that we're all living in, we're not at work, so the pay inequities or the harassment isn't as obvious. Women might not be talking to each other at work in the same way. That to me seems like a goal to fix, or it's a huge task to fix that. But what are you looking at in terms of opportunities, in terms of pushing change forward in 2021?
Well, let me start with that, working remotely, because one of the things we know is that harassment doesn't stop when you're working remotely. And we've been urging managers, to make sure you're paying attention to what's happening in the chat rooms, during the Zoom calls, and that people have a way to reach out, because it's a little bit harder when, to actually reach out to your HR and report something than it is to wander down the hallway when you've summoned up your courage. But we need people to do that, and we need managers to think more intentionally about that. But on the point of what's to come, I have to say that out of every crisis, there's an opportunity. And the opportunity now for change is people's eyes are opened to the struggles that women are facing in a way that has never been before. And that's an opportunity. I'm really fortunate. I know Melinda Gates was on earlier today. We've had support from Melinda and Pivotal Ventures at Time's Up to have an impact lab and a research arm to actually put data and metrics and track these. So we are launching Time's Up, Measure Up to really do that during this recovery period and track over the next 3 to 5 years what's really happening with women and putting that out loud and clear. And then finally, I know earlier panels have been talking about caregiving crisis, and we are in the middle of that. That is something that women across the board, are really leaving the workforce. Women's labor force participation in the US is down to 1986 levels. This cannot continue. And building a caregiving infrastructure is one of the ways we can address that.
That is such an important point. But I want to go back to your point about Melinda. I think creating partnerships has been such a crucial way of moving forward. I think one of the big themes of this year, and we've heard it before, well, as to Misty's point, right? We've been talking about this for years. 2020 is not the first time, but allyship isn't enough. We need advocates, we need accomplices, we need partners. So I'll start with you, Tina. How have you found effective partners in doing your work? How can the women watching this panel find partners to help them create change?
Well, I will tell you, as Time's Up, we've only been around 3 years. And so we are somewhat the new kid on the block for women's organizations who have been out there for a long time doing this work. And so I approached this with some humility as a good partner, right? And not wanting to do something that's already being done really well, but how can we amplify that and be partners and working together? And I think that's so important. That's not just as an organization, but as an individual, finding what's out there in the landscape and that you want to join and be a part of. I mean, the good news actually about this Zoom world we're in is it's not that hard to join a summit, right? Instead of having to travel to New York, to participate here with Forbes, you can just dial in and you have an opportunity now to look at how much is out there and then find the issue that really speaks to you and jump into it and be allies. And then one more word about allies, I have to say, I often say with only 7.5% of Fortune 500 CEOs as women, that means there's like 93% of these men who we have to get engaged. And they, to your point, need to not just be sideline allies mouthing the words, they need to be engaged and advocates in order to make this change. And that's one of our goals, is to make sure that they are part of that.